What's up, everybody? We're back. We're live for a new episode of the Antler Up Podcast. On the other side of the computer tonight, we have Josh Dutton. Josh, welcome to the show, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it, man. It was funny because I'm sure you've gotten this now a lot over the last like 2+ years of the whole like Yellowstone stuff and Dutton. And this is my way of like, I guess, cracking the ice a little bit. My wife and I were chatting today and she goes, "Oh, you have a podcast?" And I said, "Yeah, I got Josh on from Half Rack." She's like, "Oh, great. Cool." She goes, what's his last name?" I said, "Dutton." And she goes, "You're going to call him John about 5 times, I guarantee." I was like, nope, that's my goal. I was like, I plan on not calling him John during it at whatsoever. So
I feel like it's almost everyone's icebreaker now when I first get to meet them. They're like, "Hey, you watch Yellowstone?" I'm like, I actually do. I enjoy Yellowstone too.
Yeah,
so
I do too. Have you ever been to Montana?
I have been to Montana. I've not been too deep into Montana. I've been on the western side of the state. So I spent like maybe a day or two there. Not too much time. I haven't hunted it. I would love to hunt it.
Yeah, I would love to hunt it. I feel like that is like the mecca of all outdoorsmen, like just because you have everything there. You name it. This past summer when I was out there with Tethered for the TAC event, we went, so that was I think the end of July. Man, dude, it was unbelievable. First time there, so we just went to Big Sky, so I don't really know area at all whatsoever. And that evening before other people arrived, me and one of the kids that was actually on the tagged out tour, Spoonie, we ended up going. He's a big fisherman, and I like fishing, but I wasn't going to go to Walmart to go buy a fishing rod or anything like that. So he went and bought one. We go down to right where our Airbnb was. It's pretty close, obviously, to the connecting of the resort. And man, he's fishing. I'm just kind of moseying my way around, looking at the scenery basically. And all of a sudden I hear something coming behind me, and there's these 2 big mule deer. In the summer, man, they don't care, right? Just like just like whitetails where we are from, they could care less during the summer months. Dude, I got to like 3 yards to me, I would, oh my gosh, I would have been flipping crazy if I would have had the opportunity to hunt or kill one of those, either one of them. But dude, 3-4 yards, I could hear it like chewing on the cud, and it was really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, you name it, they have a mule deer, elk, whitetail in certain parts of the state. And yeah, I would definitely live there for sure.
They had some like outstanding whitetail hunting for years and years and years. I think Blue Tongue took the numbers down quite a bit on the whitetail side of things. But like, I remember so I was that junkie that would go out and buy the monster buck videos like the minute that they were released. I'd go up to, at the time, Gander Mountain and go and buy them. And I remember like knowing what Montana had for whitetail just from that, like the Milk River, like in that little basin, and the deer that they had coming out of there. It was just something that I always wanted to try to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, like I said, first time there, seeing that scenery, man, I was just blown away. Definitely an area that I would go back to for sure, and maybe try to hunt elk one day. I don't know. I'm not sure totally. I'm not a big points guy. I don't know the ins and outs when it comes to that type of stuff. So, yeah, I rely on my buddies to be like, "Hey, put in for a point for this. Maybe we could go out in a year or 2 or something like that." But I'm not a diehard for that. I'd rather. I am like that when it comes to my points for Iowa and it's like the whitetail side of things. But when it gets to some of the Western game, man, I'm kind of out of it.
You can get pretty consumed by it. I remember probably 4 or 5 years now, we were doing our research to try to find an elk unit in Colorado. And I had like 16 spreadsheets. I had pivot tables. I had all kinds of different things trying to figure out like what unit was actually open to it and had an opportunity to kill, your highest success rate with, ease of drawing a tag. Plus then you try to layer in like bigger bulls, and there's different areas of the country that have bigger bulls or different units in Colorado. So you can get lost in it pretty quick on the point system thing. But I'm with you. Typically I let somebody who's been out there a couple times tell me, hey, this is the unit you need to apply for. And I generally take their direction.
Luckily for me and a couple other friends of mine, we have 2 really good friends, Tim Seesock and Tom Run Scavenge. Both of those good friends of mine have done out-of-state hunts with both of those 2 individuals. They are the guys that have on your side when it comes to that. They're the ones that have the spreadsheets and how many points and their odds to draw, all that stuff. So yeah, it's nice when you definitely have those individuals on your side to help you out with that.
I haven't messed around with it, but I think think it's Onyx has now a like a layering on their maps system where you can see that they have draw odds and stuff on it. So
Wow.
I think the game's gotten a little easier. It's not
Yeah.
like it used to be. Like you'd have to print it off and like highlight and manually key in and like do all this kind of other stuff. But I think they're making it a little bit easier, just like everything else with technology and those app-based scouting tools that are out there.
Dude, another thing with all that stuff though is how expensive it's getting. Like I mean, if you want to apply for multiple states and multiple different species, dude, I'm sure it creeps up on people pretty good.
Yeah, I see. I've got mixed emotions about it. I like the fact that it's like, obtainable, right? So there's some states where you literally, it's $50 for the app and you put it in. If you get drawn, then it's whatever the license cost is. And I think Colorado used to, and I could be wrong, and you'll probably find out if I am. I'm sure people will blow me up on all your social media. But I think Colorado changed a couple of years ago where you only have to pay a set amount that's not the full license amount. And I think what happened is they got a ton of applications because of that. So it kind of is like a double-edged sword because it's a commitment. Financially, you're putting up like $600 for, an elk tag or whatever. And it gets reimbursed besides like the 25 or $30 if you don't draw. But now I think it's only you have to put in for the app. And then if you get drawn, then you have to pay the full license amount, which I liked it before because I felt like even if it was just in my mind, it kept some of the people out that weren't maybe, willing to make that commitment like I was. Yeah. But it's the more access and the more people that can get out and experience, because the Western states are just totally different. I'm a diehard whitetail hunter and, I do that. That's my bread and butter, but man, getting me out West, I do love chasing those big game animals out there.
Heck yeah, man. Well, let's dive into a little bit about that, Josh. So, tell us, obviously I know, like I mentioned earlier, working for Half Rack, but what is your story? What is your, I guess, your upbringing, like you said, kind of bread and butter? Did you grow up hunting, doing all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I live in Wisconsin, grew up in Wisconsin, pretty much just spent my entire life here. My family was always big into archery hunting. Some of my best and earliest memories are going up to private or public land up in the middle of Wisconsin and watching my dad and my uncles and cousins go out. And I mean, they were just tickled to see a deer. I mean, if they got one, it was a big deal. There was big woods hunting. I mean, it's really, really big woods. It's like a lot of the state property is up in northern Wisconsin. It's hard to try and find deer even still today, and I can't say I'm like the most accomplished whitetail hunter. I've had some success. It's still hard, to go out there and try to find an animal to kill. It's not easy, but that's what kind of got me started in all of it. And, my family has always in one way or another kind of been in the garbage industry. My brother still does. He owns his own special waste company. And my dad managed and worked in landfills. My grandfather did it. My uncle, like, it's just kind of, that was the thing we did.
Okay.
And I was probably like 12 years old or something like that. And I had a friend who's still a mentor to this day, and he works in the industry, Marty Fry, who we went to church with him. And I remember like one time he's just like, so he worked for a distributor at the time in sporting goods. All he did was hunting, fishing stuff. And he invited me up to their office and they had like a sample sale. So at the end of the year, they would get rid of like all the samples that they had. Well, like to 12-year-old me, like going in there, it was like a candy shop. I mean, all it was hunting and fishing stuff. Right. And I'd fill up a box and the guy's like, yeah, $10 of all, like literally everything you wanted. So, and I spent that day with him and kind of saw like what it was about, like the marketing aspect of things and the sales aspect of things. And like, literally from that day, I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a way to work in the outdoor industry. So literally I've tried to do anything and everything I could to get into that industry. And Marty, saying again, he's the one that helped me kind of get into it. And my first job out of college was working for a company in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And I lived up there for about a year, and it was due north, and they had the NRA licensed camo line at the time. So I was like a junior rep and just, slinging product and trying to get placement and stuff like that. And I was there for about a year, and I ended up taking a job with that same distributor that I did the the whole little sample sale thing with
Yeah.
a year later. So I worked for them for probably 10 years and just have always been in the outdoor industry. I just kind of committed to it when I was young and said, I'm going to find a way to do this. Half Rack actually started as something like that. I was more on the content side. Like I was like, I really wanted to do this. Like I was telling you earlier before I think you were recording, like I was that guy that lined up to go get, I don't know that there was ever any lines to get monster bucks, but I would, the first couple, weeks that it would come out, I would go out there and like save up my money and go buy, I think it was DVDs. I'm not going to age myself that much. I think I was buying DVDs at the time, and I would buy the Monster Buck videos and the Primos videos, the Truth About Hunting series, and all that. And I would literally just sit there and watch them like crazy. So me and a couple of friends in high school kind of wanted to start doing that. Right. So we had our like old crappy camera that I'm sure my dad was like, go have fun with it, do what you need to do with it. And we started trying to film hunts and stuff. And we kind of came up with our own little hunt club, and we called it Half Rack. We had hats and shirts made. And I went as far as to get an LLC for it when I was like 18 years old even. So I started in that element of things, and Half Rack kind of went away. And I'm still friends with a lot of those guys, still hunt with a lot of them. And then, fast forward 20 years or whatever it was, 15 years. And a couple of other friends, TJ, who I think pretty well, and one other partner we have, we just had this opportunity kind of come up, and we really had with Half Rack, we really had the SKUs and the items already kind of developed. We knew what we wanted to do. We just didn't have a name for it. And I was like, well, I had this name back in the day, and I'm like, I can, Half Rack's the name. And TJ's like, that's it. I love it. And like that night, I remember him like sending me some doodles of like some of the logos, and 20 minutes later, we had the brand, we had the logo, we had everything from there. So, and that kind of launched us to where we're at today, 3 years later, almost 4.
That is so freaking cool, man. That is like so awesome to think that a dream that you had when you're 18 years old with your buddies. And then, like you said, fast forward 15, 20 years ago, here it is. And, how ironic too, that you're, here you are working in the industry now for, many years. And like, yeah, I have an idea, dude. That is so wild. I love that story.
It's a fun story. I like to tell it, and actually thank you for asking, because it's like one of the things we do some podcasts now and then, and I don't think I've ever actually gotten into the detail of like how it actually started. Yeah, but that's how it started. So,
dude, I love that. Like, because when you see these brands and these companies, and you wonder what goes into their logo, what goes into their brand name, all that stuff. Because kind of even Antler Up, I think it's funny when I talk to certain individuals and they're like, hey, Antlers Up, and they're throwing an S on it. They're, just totally opposite. And, when I started it, I don't know, my daughter at that time, she was like 6, like 5 going on 6 type of ordeal. She was really into surfing, like watching Bethany Hamilton stuff, like all this stuff. And I don't know, I just kind of was like, Antler Up, like surfs up, like, and my buddy Jim, who does stuff with me here with Antler Up, and I was like, what does it mean to you? And he's like, man, it's like poker. Like, you got to ante up. It's Antler Up. Got to get in there and do it. I was like, that's what it means to me too, man. It's just have fun with it and get, go for it basically, and all that stuff. So it's just neat to hear that you had that and we're doing that with friends when you're 18. Like that story, that hits home, man. Like that's just so cool to see that come to life basically.
Yeah, we've tried to grow the brand around that too. I mean, we've tried to stay pretty close to our roots. I mean, some of the product names that we have for Half Rack are literally places that I've hunted or people on the team have hunted. Like we name product after some of the spots and some of the towns, and now we're probably giving some stuff away. But you still got to find the state.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like we kind of stuck to that, and we really are, we've tried to develop the company as being one that's like for people like us, like, people that are just, we like to hunt and we like to go out and have a good time with it, and we're conservation based, and we try to make an affordable product but also a quality product, so that we want it to be like an all-inclusive spot. So the way that we talk about it in our meetings and stuff is we want the guy that's wearing the Walmart knockoff camel brand, and we also want that Sitka guy. Like we want them all in the same spot where they can utilize the accessories that everyone uses, but nobody really knows what that brand is. I mean, you can ask most people, be like, hey, where do you get your little gear hook? Like, who makes that? Bet you 90% of the people you ask be like, I don't know. I just bought it from wherever.
Right.
Well, we're trying to be the answer to that and be like, oh no, it's half rack. It's something like we've always said is like, we want to be a brand with a soul. We want to create a community. We want people to, have a brand to cheer for, basically. So, and we've tried to develop Half Rack to be that brand.
I'll tell you what, though, real quick, just a short, product plug. My dad has stolen both of my bow hangers because on our private property that we have here in Pennsylvania, he set up his two kind of his core areas, and he stole both of them because he's like, he used to love the old school real tree one, and I don't know if they made some type of adjustment to it, but yeah, he took my two and he was like, I'm taking them, I'm using them. I'm like, go for it, Dad. This is, it's just cool because that is the one person that I have no problem doing things and doing things for. Like, I love now when it comes to holidays and birthdays, because I would love to spoil them just because of, I have that opportunity of working and doing that, because he did a lot for me. And just because too, where our relationship was growing up to where there was a disconnect for such a long time. And then, the last 11 years of when I kind of, after graduating college and we started going back to hunting together and life slowed down for me, it's just, I don't know. So that's my favorite piece now. So I'm like, yep, go for it, man. You could take them and have fun with it.
I totally relate to that. I totally relate to it. I mean, I had a great upbringing, like, but we weren't rich by any means. I mean, we were scraping by too. I didn't know it. I guess that's something to credit my family for, my parents for, because, I thought it was just like how everyone lived, but like, we cherished the hunting stuff that we had, like the little bit that we would get that would be new, man, you kept good care of it.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of hand-me-downs and stuff like that. And so now that I can, hunting products come a little bit easier to come by nowadays. I can hook my dad up with some of that fun stuff and get him hooked up with the nicer bows and the nicer arrows and the nicer camo, and of course the accessories and stuff. But we'll get plenty of bow holders for you, bow wings for you and your dad. So you know a guy.
Yeah. Well, and what's really cool is, man, I think it was when you guys just started getting product out. I bought some product and had my daughter open up the box, and we did like a little Instagram thing. And, because I got her a rifle that year, and because it was the first year that she was able to get a mentor license. So I geared her out in some half rack stuff. We got her the orange vest. So she's dressed head to toe in some half rack stuff too.
Awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah, it's really neat. And like you said, it's good for anybody, you need those accessories, and that's exactly what it's for. Is for that, and it's affordable, which is great. But we'll get into product and stuff.
Yeah.
One thing that, and I loved your upbringing of hearing that story, because I think, I know people listen to podcasts, and it has the ability to, hey, tell us who you are, where you come from. We do all have these different stories, and there's a lot of similar stories to them with that. So I like that. That was really good. And one thing that I want to ask, and I've gotten away from it for the last couple episodes, actually for a while now, but when you look at that baseball card, right, or you pull up a video game and you're selecting your character of who you want to fight with or whatever, if it's a fighting game, and you could pick that one or two, power boosts or superpowers or anything along those lines. And you were saying about whitetail being your bread and butter, what in that whitetail world would you say, like, is that key attribute that you feel very confident, like, I've got this down pat?
I want to meet someone who's got it down pat.
Dude, how about it? Me too.
the second you think you got them things figured out, man, they bob and weave, and you can think that you become the master of that game, and you never are.
Right.
I think for me,
I was going to say, like, either explain that, or even maybe explain like your favorite things that you love in the whitetail woods, even your tactics that you like doing.
I think there's like a progression, and I wish I knew who the author was, but it kind of said like there's stages to a whitetail hunter where you start out and you just want to kill one. Like, you just literally want to try to shoot one. I went through that. It was like, I think I hunted from like 12 to 16 and shot and missed at a lot of deer. Probably one of the biggest bucks in my life I had a shot at and missed at like 13 or 14. And I so that's a real thing. So, and I understand like when new people are getting into it, especially like late onset hunters or whatever, they have to start out a little bit later. That's the thing. It's hard. And I think what I've liked and what I'm seeing now in our industry is a little bit is like we're moving away from the 200-inch deer. I think more people are like, hey, enjoy it. Like whatever you consider as your trophy, however you want to fill your tag, you fill your tag that's going to make you happy. If that deer makes your heart beat, that's good for you. And everyone brings that person up, right? So, for me, I think it's just the stages. You kind of go through it and, I was in that same stage, just wanted to kill one. And then it got to the stage where I wanted to kill as many as I could. And I just, got to wanting to stack up deer. And then it went to like wanting to shoot mature deer, like a mature deer. And now I'm kind of at the stage of like last year, I only hunted literally in Wisconsin. There was one buck that I was going to really want to put my tag on and I didn't kill him. So he beat me, and he's beaten me for the last 6 years. And it's to me, I think, what I like is just being out there and everything slows down. And just like the mornings when they're nice, crisp, like October morning, and you can hear nature wake up and you're the first one out there and you start to hear that first bird go. And, like all of that it's just it's my way of resetting and refreshing myself and like just kind of cleansing all the busyness that goes on in life. And I've gotten to the point now where I used to put like a tremendous amount of pressure on me to like, I had to get it done like this day or that day. And it's gotten a little bit easier because I can, I have the luxury now. It's flat out a luxury. If I want to go hunting on a Tuesday morning, I can go hunting on a Tuesday morning. Where, you didn't have that. I didn't have that earlier in life where I had to get something done on a weekend. So it's a little bit different in that respect, but it's, more of a just enjoying the process than the actual harvest. And I've allowed myself to kind of realize that instead of putting all that kind of pressure on me to be like, hey, I got to get a buck down. Now I say that now, March, whatever, what is it? The 7th.
Yeah.
If it's November 8th or 9th, I'm probably not going to give you that answer. I'm probably getting a little more nervous about, wanting to see something, or get my tag on something. But yeah, I would say just the slowing down of the process and learning to enjoy it. Like, and just, the chase itself is more appealing to me now, and the ambiance and sharing camp with friends and having people to do it with. I really enjoy that. I'm still kind of a solo guy. Like I go out by myself. I get mildly annoyed when there's camera people and like you have to do all that kind of stuff. And because it makes it difficult. And luckily I don't have to do that much, but like that does make it harder. And I've learned more now to just enjoy it. Like the times that I get to hunt with my dad or my brother, because I know that those days are, you never know.
Right.
And I don't know, over the last couple of falls, I've just taken more time to like kind of enjoy it. My dad barely hunts. I mean, he gets up and, I would go sit in this stand and then he goes back to bed or whatever, or he'll hunt until like prime time. And then he gets down when it's like, prime time because it's too dark or whatever. But he likes to be the camp guy, right? So he's back at the shed and he's like, hey, what'd you see? All this kind of stuff. So, and I mean, it used to kind of annoy me a little bit, but now I'm just like, hey, that's, it's what he likes to do. And it's stuff that I'll always remember about him. So it's the process and just enjoyment of it. And, you learn the more time you spend out there. Like the thing that I would say, like for somebody who's just getting started into whitetail hunting is be in the woods.
Yeah.
Like, and just the more time you get watching animals and understanding movement and like, understanding why you saw deer move, and correlating that with like weather or, rut activity or stuff, it starts to click the more you're just out there and you understand what those prime days look like and feel like, and you can kind of start to recognize them before they happen. And, that's just something that takes time and just understanding and learning and, playing the wind is a huge thing. I think it depends on what you want to do. Again, if there's people out there that are just looking to fill their tag and, they're happy with a spike buck or a 4-point buck, God bless you. That's awesome. I'm excited for you. And I'll be the first one to high five you.
Yep.
But they are also the dumbest deer in the woods, and they're not that difficult to kill. Like a younger buck is pretty darn easy. So, and not, you got to have them, but I'm not trying to diminish anybody by any means. But,
Right.
you know, once you kind of get that and understand that, you can learn from it, but you kind of want to move on too. You're like, okay, you know, I can kill that deer. Like in your head, you don't have to actually execute the shot. You're like, I know I could take that deer if I wanted to kill that deer.
Right, you won that battle amongst you and that whitetail. Yeah.
And that's kind of how I think of it. Like, yep, you know, and I practice drawing on deer. I think that's another good thing that people, you know, spend a lot of time, like don't spend enough time shooting deer, like especially archery equipment, right? So I'm a bow hunter, pretty hardcore.
Same here.
I gun hunt, but I gun hunt for the family element of it all. And I like to get together. I like to play cards. I like to drink with the guys. And of late, like now, like it's something that I have 2 girls that they can do. This was the first year that I took them out and they sat out there, and my brother has 2 boys, and, you know, they're not yet interested, but they will be hopefully sooner than later. And so, you know, it's changed. Even that's changed. I mean, so it's like more like trying to get the kids involved with it, which I do enjoy, but at my soul is bow hunting.
Yeah.
So I prefer to be out there chasing them with the bow.
I'll tell you what, man, amen to everything you said. And the one key thing that you said, and I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure I elaborate on it, because it is the one thing that I fell victim to. And I think a lot of hunters fall victim to is you said, be in the woods, right? And prior to that, you know, go through those experiences. And then you also said prior to that about slowing things down, and you need to do both of those things at that time, right? And I know that's kind of probably what you were getting at and saying, but man, I think a lot of people, what I did in the past was, I'm in the woods to be okay. I got to get it done, right? Like I'm hunting. I'm hunting. I got to kill. And if you don't maybe start, and I'm not saying you have to write down, oh, I saw a buck sighting, oh, I saw a deer, but slow it down, see why, you know, see how your wind's going, and just like you said, build up that resume, right? Build up your attributes, your woodsmanship, because like I said, I know for a fact within the last, you know, 3-4 years of starting Antler Up and doing all this stuff, you know, you get suckered into that. Like, I got to produce, I got to do, like, who do I got to produce for? Like, I'm just from, you know, just to say I did that, you know, and that sucked. And like you said, even though I did not kill a buck this last year, this was a great learning year. I took a lot in. I got in on a lot of mature deer. I did not have I just didn't have that opportunity. Like, could I have slipped a 45-yard bomb in the big woods on the mountains of PA out of the biggest buck I've ever seen? Yeah, but why? Wasn't taking that chance. I wasn't confident enough to do that, and it would have been a very tight squeeze. So, you know, there's things like that. So if you're in the woods and you're going through that, you're learning, slow that down and really like take it in. Exactly what Josh said. And then another thing that I want to kind of talk, you said an October morning. Ooh, those are like that speech right there, amongst, depending on who you're talking to, is like the end all be all. Don't do it. So go ahead and maybe elaborate on that, because man, I'll tell you what, like you said, you have the luxury, right? If you want to go out on a Tuesday morning because the weather looks great, you know, some people don't. I want to get out as a school teacher. I'm very like, man, I don't know how many days these kids have off, but then as a teacher, I have in service, I have to go. End of October 28th, 29th, like the days when it's just about getting really good. So, you know, I have to rely on those Saturdays.
Yeah.
And here in Pennsylvania, we don't have Sundays, right?
Yeah, that's such a
it's a crock of shit. But
yeah,
but you know, so what is your, maybe, you know, growing up, or things that you've developed over the years of, you know, I don't know, the October mornings and things that you prefer, of maybe things that you've gone through, like and that was actually a question that I have, was like, you know, like what are maybe things that you've experienced, like trends, and not necessarily trends in gear or things like that, but just things that you've noticed in the woods.
So again, I do it for enjoyment too. And like, so if you ask me, like, what is my favorite day to hunt? I would say November 2nd. What's your second favorite day? It'd be October 31st. So like that last week of October, I've had a lot of luck. And if you can get a good cold front that's pushing through, I would really like those. I really like those mornings. I typically don't hunt mornings during the early season. So unless I've kind of moved in, and saddles have kind of changed a little bit of the way that I hunt too. where, you can get a little bit more after them and you're more on the offense than you are, like, not to say like, tree stand hunting's like where you're playing defense, but I feel like it's just way more, you can be way more aggressive if you have a saddle, because you can get in tight on places. And there's like, depending on what you're, of course, trying to harvest, if you're trying to harvest a deer and you just want a doe or a smaller buck, you should be hunting every October morning. Like, if you hunt them on, bed to feed patterns, you can shoot a doe. You can shoot, like, it doesn't matter. You're going to see them if the weather's right and you catch them and, it's not terrible hot or whatever. Right. You can shoot a deer in October or September. To me, it seems like if you got the right conditions that come together and you can move in on a deer and you've got like really good intel that deer's in that area, whether that's, on foot scouting or you're getting your trail cameras, and especially now with like trail cameras that are sending you, live basically information, which that's a whole story too in itself. But you can get some good intel to be like, hey, I'm going to move in on this guy, and the best way for me to slip in too. And I think that's something that not a lot of people talk enough about is entry and exit. Yep. And if it's easier for you, I've got one farm that's easier for me to get in for morning hunts because it's just easier. I've got the cover of darkness. I don't have any issues. I can get in there without bumping any deer. And it's not as easy to hunt at night because the deer come back out in the fields and it's hard for me to get off of that at night. So for me, it's a better spot to hunt in the morning. It's set up better for me to get in and out, and I'm not bumping a bunch of deer. And that to me is a big deal too. Like, I really spend a lot of time thinking about how I get in and out of a property without, I'm trying to be as light impact as possible. Yep. So, but yeah, I would say, October mornings are, the number one reason is because the conditions are usually pretty nice. Like, you can go out there and it's, it's brisk. It's like, 40 degrees out or 50 degrees out. So you're not freezing. It's not like that late December hunt where you've got, 15 layers on and your feet are, frozen, and it's just comfortable, and if you're out there like to enjoy it and spend the time out there, I mean, the colors are beautiful. It's awesome to be out there that time of year. And that's just one of those times that, when I think of deer hunting, I always just think of, late October, early November, which I think most people think of early November, but I'm not a guy that's going to sit here and say, you should hunt in October. You definitely should hunt in October.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I will second what you said. I love, like you said, the colors, just everything about those October mornings too, and just seeing the sun come up. It's very relatable to the turkey woods, right? When the spring and it's starting to green up, it's a whole different feel, especially you got the green coming up in the spring. And then obviously when it's those oranges and yellows and reds and everything in the fall, it's just something magical, man. And you just know, like you just hear when the deer was like, that first gobble in the morning in the spring, just hammering down. It's good times. And then, man, this is getting me fun. This is getting exciting for hunting season. So,
well, spring turkey hunting's actually, I feel that probably more turkey hunting because I think you're penned up. Like, for me anyway, living in Wisconsin, we're supposed to get another snowstorm on Friday. So like, you just get sick of it, right? Yep. You're done with the winter. You're done with being inside. You're done with being cold. So the first time you go out and you're actually able to sit outside and be back outside without freezing, and that first gobble, yeah, to me, you can't beat it. Like, I just as much love turkey hunting. I mean, I'm a deer guy first. I feel like I get asked that question a lot, but if someone was like to say, hey, you had to pick one, it would be a real hard decision. It would undoubtedly be deer hunting. I would pick whitetail hunting, hands down,
Yep.
No questions asked, but I do love to turkey hunt.
Heck yeah, man. Well, what tell us, I guess, a little bit about the traditions that maybe your family has had, like you said, about camp and your dad and your brother and everything like that. Just because coming from Pennsylvania myself, same thing, grew up, really in that traditional, Orange Army. I did bow hunt. My dad was always a big bow hunter, and I was 12 years old when I received my first like big boy bow that I could actually kill a deer with, basically. And I was actually successful when I was 13. I think I was either 12 or 13. And so yeah, I've had the archery bug my whole life. It just kind of seems like you as well. But what are some of your like family traditions that you do back in Wisconsin?
We never, so I don't think I had like the traditional Wisconsin hunting upbringing, because a lot of it still is like they will close school for that opening week of gun season here. We have a 10-day gun season, and I've learned to love it. But growing up, we never did it. Like we barely ever gun hunted. We didn't have any place to go. Like we hunted public property and nobody really gun hunted. Right. So we would spend, maybe this is another reason why I like October. Like we would go up and camp at a state campground with like my uncle, my grandfather, and like the whole families were up there, like wives, everything. Like, so they'd all be there. And we always did it. And the group would be bigger some years and smaller in some other years. And like the stories, I wish I was around for some of the earlier stuff, because my parents, like my dad tells stories and my uncle tells stories of like back in like the 70s and like going up there with where there was nobody else that bow hunted during that time. And they'd be up there for like 2 weeks, and, you know, they'd have some awesome stories. There's still like stories they talk about deer that were shot, you know, bad and like stunk because they didn't find it till the next day or whatever. And they still talk about it. Like, and it's, you know, one of those things where, you know, it's always kind of, you put it on this pedestal of what it was because they talked so high about it. Yep. So when you actually finally got to do it, I just remember being ridiculously excited. And I didn't even get to hunt because the first couple of years that we were there in the state of Wisconsin, at that time, you had to be 12 years old.
Yep. Same here.
So I would just go up and literally sit with my dad in the woods. And I mean, I would watch him hunt, and I don't think I ever actually saw him harvest a deer in person, but I've seen a missed deer, which I remind him about sometimes. But yeah, so I mean, that was like what we did. Like we would, you know, they would take us out of school. I remember doing homework. We had a pop-up camper that was nothing fancy by any means. And I remember doing homework, sitting there at the table during the day and, you know, having to keep up with my schoolwork, and then going out with my dad at night and going out in the morning. Sometimes I'd go out in the morning. Most of the time I'd go out at night. Yeah. And there's a little pond there, and we'd fish, and it was awesome. I mean, it was great. It's some of the best memories I have of my youth. And then probably, you know, my dad and his best friend went turkey hunting every year. Like when they first started, I think my dad and Dennis were like, that was like, we called him Uncle Dennis. He was a family friend, but he was around all the time. So those two, I think, hunted the first ever turkey season in Wisconsin, or like the first one after they reintroduced. So like early 90s, maybe. I don't know exactly when it was. So they started turkey hunting in Wisconsin, like right at the beginning. Okay. And so they got into it like hardcore. So they'd go up the week before, they'd scout. You only have a week in Wisconsin to turkey hunt on your permit. So when I got old enough, like I didn't get to go with them until I was 12. So like, it wasn't one of those other kind of camping trips where you could go and everyone's there. It was like, no, this is like the guys are going up and having like a guys weekend now. And I understand how important that is now, but at the time it was like, I was not happy. I was pissed. I had to stay home. So I remember like that first year, and I was 12 and got to go up with them and got to experience turkey hunting. We did it every year. So we would go up north, and we hunted at that same spot that we would deer hunt. But for one reason or another, we always rented a motel that time when we would go. And it's all the classic things that make you like it. Like, you know, you get out, and we only hunted till noon. So that's the season closed at noon back then. Yep. So you'd go out and you'd hunt until noon. We'd chase birds around. It was great. The numbers were awesome. There was birds gobbling. And then we'd scout, take naps. And then, like, you know, 12-year-old, my dad and his buddy go to the bar. So I get like fistful of quarters to go play darts and Pac-Man and as much Mountain Dew as I can drink. And, you know, they were hanging out at the bar. Yeah. So like, as a young guy, that's, you know, you're looking at that like, man, this is awesome. It doesn't get better than that. Yeah. So I did that for, you know, throughout my entire upbringing, basically all the way through high school. I think I went to like one homecoming. The rest of them I missed because I was turkey hunting. Yeah. So
it's crazy.
That's just where I put my priorities at that point in time. Was like turkey hunting was where I needed to be.
It's so funny because I'm so positive that, I mean, we had very similar stories and upbringing. Like my dad and I, we would not necessarily go somewhere to stay. I would stay at his house because of where we would, go hunt and everything like that in the mornings. But man, it's just so funny just to hear, because as you're saying, these like memories are popping up of doing certain hunts with my dad, and when I'm walking behind him, and if I stepped on a stick, like I'd get that.
Yeah.
Like,
what has it reversed for you yet? Because I remember like having that look too, where like I would follow my dad and I'd step on a stick and he'd look back at me. Now I'm walking in front of him and I could hear him like dragging his feet, and I'll like turn back and look at him like, shut up.
Dude, it's so funny because I'm the same exact way, because there were multiple times this year where, like, rifle season, like you said earlier, even I was like, hey dad, I'm gonna go down like for entry exit areas, and I told him, I'm like, I'm going in this way, like I know which way you're gonna go, so I'm going down first. Like, let me get a head start, because I know he's gonna be a little bit louder, and he's totally fine. It's so funny. He'll be like, go ahead, Jared, go ahead, just go ahead. And I'm like, he's probably gonna be sitting up here drinking coffee. It's so funny how that is, because again, as a young kid, I remember just being so like, man, I'm trying to be as quiet as I can, and and I'm getting the glare and all that stuff. And Dimitri's, it's so funny because we'll go, when I would hunt a lot with Dimitri and his dad a couple of years ago and stuff, and the same thing, he'd be like, Greg, he'd call his dad Greg, by his first name, he'd be like, pick up your feet, will you? Like he would just, and I would just chuckle. I love going out with them. And it's so funny because then he'd be like, all right, Jeremy, you're going to go with him and you're going to branch off. I'm like, man, he's just sending me with him just because I'm not going to see anything. He'll see everything. It's just so funny, man. But
I love it. Like, I mean, in growing up, like everything, if it was the same for you, like whatever my dad said was gospel. Like if he said it, I was like, take it to the bank. And now I hear him like dragging my kids around in the woods, like, and they love just to walk the woods with my dad. And my dad loves it too. And he's like pointing out stuff, and he's, oh, that's a, redheaded whistler. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's just fun to hear it, like how it, how he says, and like my kids are the exact same way that I was when they're like hanging on every word that he says, which is great. I mean, it's one of those moments that that's why you like being an outdoorsman and being out in the woods. And those are experiences that you only experience if you get the chance to go out and run around the woods.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Actually, that was one of, like, when I first started Antler Up on the webpage, I wrote an article of, hindsight's 2020, just because of my upbringing. I love now, you know what I mean? Now, right now in the position that I'm in, raising a daughter, and I'm so lucky. My wife is really cool. Don't get me wrong. There's times where she drives me crazy with the whole hunting thing and how much she gets on my case about it sometimes, but she's very supportive with it. But I wrote this article because of growing up, I had what we just talked about, right? Like, and I enjoyed it. And then that whole young teenager where girls are important to me, and I was playing sports and doing things, like I still loved the outdoors. Like, don't get me wrong, that was always still a huge part of me. That was a huge aspect of my life still during that time. But once college hit and I was playing baseball and doing certain things, it kind of took a back burner, right? And my relationship with my dad kind of was a little bit strained, and it was strained for other reasons as well. And man, I'll tell you what, like I said earlier, once I got a job and I was able to slow things down a little bit, our relationship slowly started to get better. And then I missed the outdoors, right? I missed opportunities, and I was like, Dad, let's get back. Like, I'm coming back in. Like, let me join the club again and do all this stuff. And ever since then, it's been awesome and making more memories. And man, hindsight's 2020. So like all those times that I thought, man, even times where I would be in the woods and sitting, and I'd be like, man, I wish I was with my friends, or I wish I was doing this. Like, man, that's what I needed back then, right? As a whole young teenager, that is exactly what I needed. And I wish someone was able to, like, the relationship that I had with my dad, I wish he would have been able to smack me upside my head basically and been like, Jared, relax, and slow down for me, but now I'm lucky enough. Now, like you said, I'm able to go hunting with him. I'm able to help him out. Like, it's funny because doing this it's an educational based platform, being a teacher. So I love the education side of things and talk. And I'll bring to him tactics and things. I'm like, hey, like you just said earlier about the entry and exit routes, that is something that I've known, right? And like you said earlier, there's things where it's a lot easier. And I told him, I said, why don't we park further down the road? Like that road's not that bad. It's a little bit longer for a walk for us, yes, but there's a big deer that's we've had on camera, like within the 100 yards of where we park. Like, yeah, I know for damn sure, Dad, he's probably watching us go somewhere. You know what I mean?
For sure. There's no doubt in my mind.
Right, no doubt in my mind. And so I told him, I said, I'm going to be coming up within the next month, buy or rent. Let's go rent one of those shrub, cutters from the hardware store or whatever, and let's go make a new little parking spot where we could pull our trucks in. He's like, yeah, let's do it. And he's all for it, right? Because obviously I'll be the muscle man and to do it, and which is great. But it's just so cool now where he'll listen to me, and just exactly what you said earlier is, we hung on their words, and which I still do. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there are times where I'm like, man, we should try this, and he's open to it, which is cool.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Oh,
yeah, I've gotten that too a little bit, where he's he's only ever hunted big woods, and when that's all we hunted. Like, we only hunted public property, and I was probably like in a sophomore in high school, and my parents bought 40 acres up in like Black River Falls area up in like west central Wisconsin.
Okay.
And that was a game changer. So that changed like everything, because the deer numbers are like ridiculous up there. So you could sit for a week and not see any deer. And now you go out on the property that they still own it. They live there actually.
Yeah.
So you go out on that property and you don't see 10 deer, you're doing something wrong. Like, there's something wrong, because there's just that many deer. It's actually to the point where we need to shoot more deer off of the property, because it's hurt our buck numbers up there aren't what they should be, and the caliber deer isn't what it should be. So, and I think we've gotten a little bit there, because it's like a 40-acre piece. There's only so much you can do. But same thing, like, I've talked to him. I've got, obviously some friends, the guys at Domain Food Plots. Yep. Like, Mike's a good friend of mine.
Mike's the man.
And Mike is awesome. So, I've gotten Dad convinced into putting some food plot in there and having some kind of different green for the deer to come to, that's different from, corn or soybeans that's up there. And so, but yeah, and he's open to it, and he's more than willing to do it, gets excited about it, gives him a project,
Yep.
So.
Oh man, that's awesome. So what are you doing now? Like, what does a typical, I guess maybe even outline like in a Cliff Notes version, that in certain pieces you could go dive deeper into if you would like to, Josh, is, what is that typical outlook or a plan for you in a hunting year look like? Like, you could start from now, I guess would make perfect sense, because obviously you're maybe planning out of state hunts, or you just said you were outsmarted for the 6th year in a row from this nice big buck and did not fill that tag. So maybe what are some things you're planning for the year? Just because I obviously now's a time when a lot of people are doing the out of state stuff, figuring out points, where they like to hunt, maybe getting a new bow. What does a typical year timeline for Josh look like?
If I had all the time in the world, I'd be spending on property improvement. Like, I'd be out there all the time. Like right now, like, so we don't have snow where we're at currently. And we went out shed hunting Sunday, and it got me already like the wheels turning. I'm like, I really want to get this spot filled out this year. Like last year I needed to put a food plot in here, never ended up doing that. So I'm already starting to kind of think about what I want to do. I need to be better about cutting some trails in this property too. It's such a thick piece. Like this one property that I hunt, it's awesome. It's a great property. It's really, really thick, but it's so hard to maneuver. And I think you can almost funnel deer movement if you have there's a couple of like really small trails that I've made myself, and it's just turned into highways. Like the deer use them constantly because it's the easiest way to get through this. The property was like select cut maybe 6 years ago, and that opened up the canopy, and there's a bunch of it's tons of great browse, tons of great cover. Like it's an awesome bedding area. Like it's a phenomenal spot, and it's in between 2 spots for feed. So it's really just a really good spot. Exit entry is not ideal. So like I'm thinking of different ways to get into the property. Like how can I get into the property? Because I think that there's a lot of times if you're hunting a specific caliber of deer, like if you're trying to kill something that's 3.5 years old or bigger, or something that's even 5 years old or 6 years old, I think a lot of times those deer, if you're hanging in the same stand every year over year, they have you pegged just as much as you think you got them pegged. So I'll maneuver, I'll move stuff around. That's like one of the things I actually wrote an article for a while ago for Mike, was just being aggressive and not being scared to move. Like if you see like deer movement, Like there's so many times I think people are like, man, I just hope he comes over to me. And like, how do I get him to come over here? Like just you got to just think about it differently. Don't like wait for them to come to you, go after it. If you have an opportunity, especially like during the rut, one of the biggest deer I've ever killed, I saw chasing a doe on the totally opposite side of the property. And I knew I was in a good spot. Like the spot that I was in, I was like, man, that's a really good spot. But I got down, ripped the stand down, went right up there and literally hung right where I thought they came out. And that night I killed him. Coming back around, he was circling back in because I know that he busted her out. I didn't know that at the time. And after I went and looked, it was bedding area was like everywhere. So like there's a little doe family that was bedded up in there. It was a doe and 2 fawns. And that was their little bedding area. So I think people tend to be a little overcautious from time to time. And I think it's especially in the right time of the year, if you're doing the things that you need to do about playing wind or whatever, you need to be aggressive. You need to go in and make a move on a deer if you can make a move on a deer. So I'm just thinking about that right now, like on the pieces, like for whitetail properties, like the whitetail property that I have, I'm thinking about like, how do I maneuver in and out? Where are my tree stand locations going to be? Food plots. I'm starting to think about that. Like, how do I put a food plot in? I've been reading and hearing a lot about water, and I've got to get some kind of like a little pool, pond, something going, that I'm going to try to do that too. So those are like on my checklist of things to do. Now, I always have these great grandiose plans, and then it's always tough to get the time to do it. But, I'll get 70% of it done. I'm always like, it feels like scrambling. It'll come down to August and I'm like getting nervous about like, oh my gosh, I didn't do this or didn't do that. So I start to try to plan out what I can do. I'm even starting to kind of think about turkeys. So, there's a couple areas because I hunt that same property for turkeys, try to sneak in and get close to where they need to be too. And yeah, so I'm thinking about that. Traditionally, if we've got an out of state hunt, obviously, like most applications, I think April is about the latest. There's some that are probably a bit later, but you're putting in your apps, making sure your applications are due, even if it's for preference points, and putting in your preference points to just continue to bank those.
What's on your agenda for next year? Any out of state or staying closer?
Well, I've got I should draw a Kansas tag.
Okay.
So I'm hopeful that I'll get that. And then I'm also pretty sure I'm going to do an elk hunt too. So I'll have that in Colorado. And then I would love to I do a North Dakota hunt almost every year. And last year it was just a blast. We had a great time. There's so many deer. It was fun. It was just everything you want to do. Yeah. But I've got all these, I have all these other opportunities. It's hard to not do that hunt because it's ridiculous. It's just fun and it's not that expensive and it's easy to draw. And I've got friends that are local that love to do it and they've been out there a couple of times. But yeah, if I get drawn in Kansas and I get drawn in on my elk, something's unfortunately got to give, and that'll unfortunately probably be it. And then otherwise, it's I'll hunt Wisconsin for whitetail and then possibly Illinois.
So let me ask you this question about Kansas, because Kansas, I'm in the same boat. I could draw on that. Is a plan hunt. Like I said earlier in the podcast, a friend, Tim, we have planned to do that. Mm-hmm. Obviously a couple years ago, it was, people went, and then for some reason, it seemed like this past year, you would look at other people's social media accounts, other things like that, and they're saying it was hammered, right?
It's dumb.
Right? Just how many people. So does that draw you away from it? Does it take away that lust for it, I guess you could kind of say? Because my feeling is I'm kind of hoping, well, if people get so turned off from it, from hearing so many people talk about it from last year, that maybe this year it won't be so bad, or maybe people will have that same thought process and still just go. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I know that their applications were up like a ridiculous amount from year over year from last year, which is part of the reason I drew the year prior and shot an awesome buck down there. And I kind of was anticipating getting drawn again for next year. So I was kind of surprised and I didn't. So, I was a little bitter, but it's, I'm kind of a newcomer to Kansas. I can't like say I claimed it like, oh, I've been hunting there for 10 years. Like that. Right. I've hunted there 3 times. I've gone turkey hunting there a couple times more, but it's a magical place. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why. I mean, especially if you're like in Pennsylvania, like you, or, you know, it's in parts of Wisconsin, there is some kind of fantasy land spots in Wisconsin where it's just ridiculous, but I don't get to hunt those. Kansas is one of those things, and I've been pretty lucky to hunt some really cool properties out there, but it's been by far the most fun whitetail hunting I've ever had in my life. As far as like the rut activity, the amount of deer you're seeing, how open to calling they are. Like if you wanted to rattle and grunt, like how effective that is. Like for where I'm at and where you're at, it's not all that effective. I bring my rattling horns, but I barely ever do it. I might grunt once or twice if I can see a deer to try to draw them a little closer if I need to, but I don't do a heck of a lot of calling in most of the spots that I'm at around here just because it's not that effective. Down there, man, it is a different world. Like you can get some, it's a lot of fun. I mean, and the terrain's different. It's a little bit more open. So I think you get to see more. It seems like you see more deer because you can see farther.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not as thick if you're hunting up in like even if you're hunting the croplands around by me, if they're standing corn, you could have 20 deer around you. You just don't know it because they're in the corn. Right. Out there, you see them because there's like literally, not that much that keeps them in between. Like those little fingers, if you see those little draws and those little washout, those arroyos or whatever, they're in them.
Yeah. Oh man, that's exciting. Well, the other piece of me that's kind of also a friend of mine from Tethered, we both have 3 points in Iowa, and we obviously the Iowa Deer Classic was this past weekend, and I got the text message when we were coming home from Pittsburgh. We took my daughter for her birthday, kind of like a night getaway and everything, and he's like, "How many points do you have again?" And I said 3. He goes, "So do I." He goes, "You want to try to pull a certain," gave me a unit. I was like, "Man, sure, why not?" Like, worst case scenario, I don't, and it's another point for then I would leave 4, and if I do, then I'll just have to make it work, right? It's one of those type of situations. So yeah, man, I'm with you on that. I'm excited for a Kansas trip. I mean, Tim and I, when we were planning, I was thinking kind of that right before Thanksgiving time frame. Just because of school schedule for me, and I've heard some pretty good things about that time frame. Like, yeah, you might see a bigger guy and he might be busted up, but I mean, that doesn't matter to me. I'm not a picky, coming from what I've killed in my life. I'm not picky with that type of stuff.
So, I mean, the one that I killed 2 years ago had a broken 3 G3, and I'm sure, I mean, he was just broke off at the tip. I don't care. I mean, that was a mature deer all day. That deer wasn't getting out alive. Right. There was no way that was going to happen. So for me, I think that weekend, you're spot on. Like that week, like typically I think I was down there that week that I killed too, was that Thanksgiving week. Cause I remember having to try to get home in time for the gun season that opened for Wisconsin. So that was, that was pretty fun activity. And it's weather dependent. I mean, it can be warm down there. Obviously there's times where I've been down there hunted when it's, 80 degrees out, which is, that sucks.
Yeah.
But, it's a fun spot, man. It's hard for me to hate on anyone for applying there, cause it's such a cool spot. And, it's been so accessible, and for people that do out of state hunts, and I don't know if you can afford to do it and you got the opportunity to do it, I would, by all means, if you're a deer hunter, go, especially if you live out in Pennsylvania, go check out, man. You don't even have to go that far. Like Ohio's on my list. Like I want to go to Ohio and
New York.
There's some big deer getting killed in Indiana.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of good opportunities out there. It's just, you gotta, get out and do it.
Yeah.
And put expectations on yourself that are realistic. I mean, a lot of times the first time I go to a spot, I'm long gaming it. I'm going to check it out, and I might come back to that spot. I might not, but you're always kind of just scouting, and is this spot got potential for me to come back to? And you get lucky. I mean, the spot that we found in North Dakota, I can't say I didn't find it, but one of my very dear friends found it. And I've been going there for 20 years.
Yeah. What about then, like when you get everything going and obviously, you figure out maybe where you're going to hunt, what's the summer look like? Do you get a chance to go out and do more scouting? Do you believe in that type of stuff? I know I have friends that obviously still go out and scout in the summer, and I have other friends would rather not because of the ticks and everything else. And, it's a little bit more challenging, I guess.
I don't care. I'm going to go out. If I can get out, I'm going to do it. I mean, it's within reason, right? I mean, if it's, 100 degrees out and, 70% humidity, I'm probably not going to be, all that excited to get out there, but I'll still do it. I mean, I get out there and look where I can find, because I think especially for like early season in Wisconsin opens in September. I think it's the third Saturday in September, which is really honestly some of your best time to actually kill the deer that you're looking to kill, because they're patternable. So if you're out there, and like trail cameras can tell you a lot, but they don't tell you everything. And like I'm guilty. I've fallen into the trap of trusting my trail cameras too much. Probably 2 years ago, even in a little bit last year, but I was way more aware of it last year than I was the year prior. I don't trust them completely. I think that there's been too many times where I know for a fact that there's a mature deer in that area, and maybe it's walked around the trail camera or some reason it didn't trip it. And, I'm sitting on my couch because I'm like, it's too warm or whatever excuse I came up with where I didn't want to go out hunting, and, the trail cameras are quiet. So if the trail cameras are quiet, that must mean no deer are moving.
Yep.
It's not the case. I mean, there's deer moving, especially if you get to that time of the year where it's like, the rut and they're moving. But I would also say that for early season though. So if you're going out moving trail cameras around, which is what I do a lot, I'll move trail cameras. So I'll put them out, set them out there for a little while. There's some that I'll literally go out there turkey hunting and I'll let them soak all summer long. Yep. And then like usually the first, it's a spot that TJ and I hunt a lot. We actually call it TJ's grocery store because he goes out there and he loves to shoot deer like 2 miles back in some county. It's fun to get them out, but it's a cool spot. So I'll go back there and like hang trail cameras during the turkey season. And then I'll come out and, that first hunt of the year, we'll grab them and, check what the cards are to determine like, hey, is this where we need to be? Is this worth spending another day out here hunting and move them around? So yeah, if I can be out there doing something, I'm going to be out there doing something. It's low impact. You're not going to hurt anything by going out there and moving around. You want to get some tree stands hung too and moving them around. You can do that too. I mean, it's a little bit hard because I'm a big brush guy. I like to, be able to break up I'm 6'5", pretty big human. So I need to be able to break up my line of sight and stuff, or their line of sight. But that's hard to do when you have no vegetation out. You want to be able to do all that and get everything there. So, that you got your shooting lanes established so that when the season actually does come in, early September, everything's green.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to, you can go out and get a shot off. So yeah, if I can be out, I will be out. I like the glass bean fields. I'm crazy about doing that. So I'll go out and, when I can go out and look at bean fields, specifically like up north. There's some spots like I'll definitely be around here. I live in southeastern Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I will take long ways home and, do some other stuff just to, get a chance to maybe see, right at sunset to see if I can see any deer out in the bean fields. But yeah, I mean, I do a fair amount. Like I'm always thinking about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know like I'm the same way. I'll get out. It doesn't matter. I'll help my dad do certain things. And, there's pieces, even if I don't get a chance to scout now, especially in the past, like I was saying earlier, with now, hopefully with me having the time in the spring to go out and actually scout more, I'll have opportunities where instead of like, oh man, I got to go check out this new spot and it's July, right? That's not so much fun, and be able to find a lot of fresh, quote unquote, past season sign. So I'm anxious for that. And, and you talked about having your family. So I'm sure once the hunting season rolls around, man, it's all full steam ahead for you. That was a new question. I never really asked that. So I was kind of, going off for the tradition thing, like what kind of, yearly plan of attack is it? And I mean, I guess you could kind of say that's a question that, oh, what are you doing now? And how do you get ready and everything like that? But, do you do any other, like you said, being a big bow hunter and everything like that? Do you do 3D stuff in the summer with friends, all that stuff?
Yep. I'll shoot my bow a lot in the backyard. Depends on what kind of hunt I have coming up. If I have to get more physically fit than what I am currently, I'll, keep the regimen up of running on the treadmill or, putting some weight on your back and, putting the incline on the treadmill up to 14 and hammering away for a while just to get your endurance up a little bit, or taking a pack and hiking, just running around if you can. And I definitely shoot my bow. I mean, I try to shoot my bow as much as I can. If I can shoot it every day, I will. I'm in a league that we do a 3D course, and it's fun. It's competitive because me and my friends make it competitive. It's not. There's no Levi Morgans there. So like we go out there, we have a good time, we shoot, but it's also great because it's all 3D target for the most part, and you're shooting at animals. And I kind of fall into the trap of just shooting at a lot of targets, or shooting at block targets a lot, and white dot kind of thing.
Yep.
And I think it's important to shoot at 3D and shoot at the outline of an animal, just because it's going to help you. And then we transition into a platform league in August, which is kind of fun because that's, everything's more or less for bow hunting, tree stand setups. And like the farthest shot, I think, is like 50 yards. If that, it might be like 48. And it's all elevated. So you're from a platform and you're, ranging these different targets and stuff like that. So it really kind of gets you honed in. Most of my shooting, like I even shoot in archery league Thursday nights. I try to. Haven't been great about getting to too many of them this year, but it just keeps you sharp, and there's target bows, and I've shot those before in the past, but I go and shoot the 5-spot league with my hunting bow, because the reason why I'm doing any of this is to be a better bow hunter.
Yeah.
So I don't really care about my target shooting. If I can go out there and shoot a 300, that's great. That is important to me. I like to be able to shoot well, but I want to be shooting well with the bow that I'm actually going to be hunting with, and not some, 7-footer that throws arrows down there at 100 feet per second.
Yep. Oh man, that's good stuff. And it's all true. And that's exactly, why we've done 3D leagues, and why we try to shoot as much as possible. And it's just so neat just to, man, I love just talking to people that are diehards, like how and believe and think the way I think, basically, if that makes sense. So well, dude, man, what I know, half rack, kind of like a hard transition here, kind of going from talking hunting and everything like that. And obviously there's a new product that's not released yet from half rack that I'm dying to get my hands on, Josh. And that is going to be, I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but I remember seeing a video from ATA with TJ doing it. It's going to be right back here, and it's going to be able to hold my bow, that little peg. I cannot, you probably have it somewhere like on your wall right now.
Yeah, I do.
I cannot wait for that. Like you were saying earlier, just like fine little pieces of gear that kind of make it doesn't matter if you're, like you said, the Sitka guy, the First Light guy, and then the Walmart guy. It doesn't matter. Like, yep. That's where the pieces like that, man, I'm a sucker for, and I love, kind of keeping things nice. And as you can see, I mean, I even got my rack.
You got your R1 up there.
Got my R1 there, and I just right back here is where I want to have that nice little new post that Half Rack's going to be coming out with, and you got a cool little meat locker coming out. So yeah, some cool things coming down the pipeline from you guys.
Yeah, the hunter's hanger is what you're talking about. So the one item, that thing is going to be fun, and if you're a gear nut, even if you're not, it's convenient, right? So I've got them in my office. I wish I could move my camera around to show you, but it's got my bow hanging on it. I've got guns hanging on them. I've got a camera hanging on it. I've got some in my workshop that have decoys I've got hung up on it. All it is like, it's something for you to utilize that, just, it's a really clean, neat way to like put your bow on display, or put your, whatever. You can put rifles on it. You can put all kinds of stuff. So it's just one of those kind of no-brainers kind of thing, because most people like just put a screw in the wall and they hang their stuff up on it or whatever. But this is a lot more, it's safer, it's a lot more sturdier than what you would do with just like a drywall screw, and it looks good. I mean, it's clean. We've got a couple different colors. We've got an orange one, we've got a green one, we've got a black one, and a gray one. And so early response on those has been pretty excited. And it's just like, it's a no-brainer item. I mean, it's like one of those things where you don't really think about it, but how much stuff do you just hang on your wall? A lot, right? You just got stuff that you just want to hang. So that'll be fun. And that should be those should be available. I don't know when you're launching this podcast, but like literally within weeks.
Oh, nice.
So we'll have those up on the website. We're going to make a huge push on social. You'll see it everywhere. Like all of the influencers will have them and start using them and show a bunch of different applications for it, and it's an item that we're pretty excited about because it's just, I mean, everyone can use it. I mean, even if you need like you need to put like your your extension cords hung up in your garage or something, you can use it for that. So it's just it's one of those items that I think everyone has a need for. And you mentioned the meat lug, which is one of the items that I'm pretty excited for. We gone through testing on that thing for a while. We really wanted to make a better cooler specifically for guys that are trapped. We were just talking about like out of state hunts and stuff. And we felt multiple, but in the prototype, one of the prototypes, we were able to fit like a full size deboned deer in it.
Awesome.
So yeah, we'll have a couple different sizes. So, I mean, it just packs down really nice. So when you're traveling too, it's not going to take up a huge amount of space. It's 100% waterproof. So, I mean, I literally tested it, brought on a couple flights, and get some looks in the airport. People are going to be like, is there meat? Because it's got branding all over it. It says meat lug. So actually, when we were testing it the first time, I had the stewardess or flight attendant, I guess, take a picture of me putting it up in the overhang. She's like, is there meat in there? I'm like, not right now, but there will be, hopefully sooner than later. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that kind of answers the question. I mean, if you're into fishing, if you're, small game, if you're into, anything, it's just something for you. The quality of the product's outstanding. It's like literally we over-engineered it. It's as far as a soft-sided cooler goes, it is the best soft-sided cooler. And I've got a bunch. I've got a ton of them. It is the best one I've ever used. And the part that I like about it is I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to retail it for like $150.
Nice. Yep.
Which is, I mean, that's just a game changer. Again, like the same thing. We want it to be accessible for everyone. If everyone's, even if you're not even out of state hunter, if you go up, like for guys where I live, a lot of us go up north.
Yep.
So it's a 4 or 5 hour car ride. You need to have something. You can debone it, put it in a cooler that doesn't take up a bunch of space, throw some ice in there, and you're good to go. Brining turkeys. There's all kinds of uses for it. So pretty excited about that one.
Sweet, man. That's awesome, dude. Well, I mean, Josh, anything else you want to talk about before you I think we covered a bunch, man. This was a fun conversation. Well, Josh, where could people check out Half Rack, check out and see what else you guys got going on?
Yeah, we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. I think we even got a TikTok now. I'm not the one that runs that, but so yeah, we're on all the social platforms. You can check us out at half-rack.com as well. We're pretty active on there. You can sign up for our newsletter. We'll send you notification on new products that are coming out, and we're in probably over 150 different retailers now too. So you'll see us. We really try to commit to dealers. So we'd like to work with the archery dealers and the mom and pop type stores if we can. And so yeah, if there's a lot of choices out there, and we appreciate everybody that's out there buying our stuff right now. We really truly do appreciate it, and we're honored to have that business, and hopefully we can earn more of it.
Heck yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you, Josh, coming on. Definitely go check out Half Rack. Like I said, I pretty much have every piece of gear that you could have from them, and whether it be from a gunsling to the screw-in bow hanger to the orange vest for my daughter and myself, it doesn't matter. Go check it out. It's affordable. It's great quality, and definitely check out Half Rack for that. And Josh, thank you for coming on, man. And everybody, thanks again for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week. Till next time, Antler Up.